Hi, and welcome to the first episode of Good Cube Sundays. I'm so excited to share this journey with you. I've always loved cooking and I always love food. It's a part of our family tradition. We can all throw down in the kitchen. And so when it came time to figure out what I wanted to present to you first on this channel, I decided one of the things I love the most, ice cream. And so I decided that I was going to just start with Good Cube Sundays. Every Sunday, we're going to explore ice cream in a different way. Different flavors, different textures, different forms of ice cream from all over the world and different cultures. I'm so excited to share this journey with you. So tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Pacific. Tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. Tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. Tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Let's get making some ice cream. Okay, what I really love about this particular recipe for the base ice cream is that it's so simple. It's really only five ingredients. You need cornstarch, heavy cream, vanilla, milk, and sugar. Now, one thing you will learn about me right away is that I am not a fan of white sugar. I feel like it's a waste of ingredient. Why miss out on the complexity that molasses brings to any recipe by using plain white sugar when you could use brown? The darker the better. Now I only have golden brown on hand, but you can use any kind of brown sugar that you like. Pro tip, if you are lactose intolerant, if you use heavy cream and lactose free milk, you have a much better chance of not having a bad reaction after eating the ice cream. The reason being, heavy cream is extremely low in lactose naturally, and lactose free milk has the lactose already removed. So the combination should do you well. Another pro tip, if you add cornstarch to your ice cream, you will overcome the challenge that always comes with making ice cream at home, scooping it out the next day. By using the cornstarch, the freezing process is much better. Now, I spice up this recipe with ground freeze dried apples, as well as some ground, not fresh, ginger, and then a splash of rum extract. Now, if you have rum at home, this is the perfect time to throw a shot in or throw a shot back. It's up to you. Rum will actually help in the freezing process because it has such a low freeze point, which will smooth out your mix altogether when it comes time to freeze. What I really love about this particular flavor combination is how really warm it is while still being cool and refreshing. This is actually the first recipe that made me think, hey, maybe I'll just do an ice cream show. And so Good Cube Sundays was started after I tried this recipe. So the first thing you do is add half a pint or 1 cup of heavy cream along with 1 cup of milk. Then you're going to add about half a tablespoon of vanilla extract. Now, if you're like me, you could just eyeball it, but I decided to measure it just for, TV. I'm going to make sure that I get all of that off the spoon before moving on to my ground ginger. One of the reasons that I prefer ground ginger for this recipe instead of fresh ginger is because ground ginger has spice and a warmth to it, where fresh ginger is more sweet. And so I'm looking for a nice spicy flavor to go with my apples. Then I'm going to put a bit of rum. You can put fresh rum, real rum, or you can use rum extract like I did. So bringing it over a medium to low heat, we're going to allow the flavors to meld together and heat before we actually put in our cornstarch and sugar. So I'm going to give it a stir as it comes to a boil, and then I'm going to make my slurry of heavy cream and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. Give that a nice good stir before adding in about a cup of brown sugar. Letting all of that come to a boil, then adding over my ground apples, a little bit more rum extract, and a little more milk to thin out the flavors. Once it becomes nice and thick and coats the back of my spoon, it's ready to go. I'm going to allow it to sit on the stove for a little while, let the flavors get together before adding it to my ice cream maker. Here's a pro tip that I did not follow. Allow your ice cream to cool before you put it into your mixer. If you do not allow it to cool before putting it into your mixer, it will take you much longer to have a finished product. While the ice cream is going, we can't have a sundae without toppings. So, one of my favorite toppings are wet walnuts, and it's also my mother's favorite topping. So, to this, I'm going to combine some toasted walnuts, some brown sugar, and some butter. Now, I get a little bit careless with this process, and what should have been brown butter ends up having to be burnt caramel. One of the things that I am going to do with this channel is I'm not going to use studio magic. If I make a mistake, I'm going to see if I can fix it and make it into something else. In order to do that, I combined some cornstarch and some milk to make a slurry, and I re-added my burnt caramel to the sauce. I'm going to spice up the flavor that I have with a little sea salt, as well as a little bit more brown sugar. The end result was not wet walnuts, but a really delicious walnut caramel sauce that is really, really good. It was definitely a save worth making. I might do wet walnuts some point in time in the future, but for right now, this was the perfect complement to the ice cream that I made. One of the things you won't see that I did off camera is I strained it to remove any of the burnt hull from the walnuts and thinned it out with a little bit of water. It is a great finish, and the complexity of the flavor really added to my ice cream. Now, this is just a first look at what our ice cream starts to look like after about 30 minutes. It is starting to get thick with, I'd say, about 1C. Before the end of this process, the ice cream is going to get thick with about 4Cs. That is one of the cool things about making mistakes in the kitchen. Because I made the mistake of using warm ice cream mix before putting it into the ice cream batter, I had to let it go for much longer than I normally would. The longer that it began to churn, the more thick it got. And here I'd say we're about thick with 3Cs. And by the end, we're going to get really nice, thick, creamy ice cream with about 3 or 4Cs. I'm going to adjust the camera now so that you can really get a good look at how thick the ice cream really is after about 40-45 minutes of churning. That thick, delicious goodness is going to be so creamy and so smooth. The final product is just a work of ice cream art. So now that my ice cream is finished churning, it is time to plate it up. One of the things that I like to do is I like to stick my bowl and my ice cream scoop in the freezer. Frozen ice cream scoop really helps with the process, it helps with the plating, and a frozen ice cream scoop also helps. Now, if you have time and you can put your ice cream in the freezer, that will give you a much better final product for plating purposes. Now, the frozen bowl or the ice cream scoop didn't particularly help me, and part of that's because I did not use cold ice cream. So I am going to use a little studio magic, and I'm going to plate the ice cream that I froze overnight. A challenge that I ran into was my commute to where I was plating was longer than I expected, so my ice cream got soft again. So it wasn't the prettiest plating, but it still was delicious. I'm going to put 2 scoops and I'm going to scoop over some of my burnt caramel sauce Pro tip for serving this the next day: if you cannot keep it out at room temperature, you are going to need to warm it back up because the fat in the butter is going to separate from the rest of the sauce. But once you heat it back up, it reincorporates very nicely. I'm gonna get some of these nice toasted walnuts onto my ice cream. Now, one thing that I am going to forget, but I'm going to go back and do, is grab some of the apple chips from yesterday. Apple chips make a great way to eat ice cream. And so you'll see that now. Or now. Definitely now. So I took some of the apple chips and I added it to my plating. The thing about plating ice cream, if your space that you're plating in is not super cold, your ice cream will melt very quickly. And so, while this isn't my most beautiful plating, this is definitely a delicious one. I want to show off a little bit of the detail and texture that I did end up with. This ice cream is really great. Now, one of the things about this show that I really want to stress is that I really am striving for a one shot show. What do I mean when I say one shot show? Instead of pretending like I make no mistakes, I'm going to show you the mess ups. And when it's possible, I'll fix a mess up, much like I did with my wet walnuts that ended up becoming brown caramel sauce. I'm a home cook. You're a home cook. Let's learn how to do these things together. Not everything is going to be perfect, but that doesn't mean that it can't be good. This ice cream is definitely very good. It is smooth, it is creamy. The salty, sweet, bitter of the burnt caramel really accentuates everything. And one of the things I love to do is use my apple chip, which just broke, to dip the ice cream. So I've got a whole bag more that I'm going to play with when I'm eating my food. It's one of the best parts of being an adult. You get to play in your food and nobody can tell you otherwise. Thank you for joining me this week, and I hope that you'll return next week for another episode of Good Cube Sunday. And always, thank the good Lord for good food and good times. All that good is good cubed. Follow me on all social media platforms. See